Thank you very much for the introduction, Dr. Raquel G. Ramos, the Dean of the College of Business Administration of PUP, Her Excellency Maria Leonor G. Robredo, the Vice President, Republic of the Philippines, Dr. Manuel M. Muhi, President of the Polytechnic University of the Philippines. Ladies and gentlemen, let me greet you, mabuhay. My subject matter today is creating sustainable development in the field of research, addressing the call for non-conventional growth. At the outset, let me give you an overview of the condition of research in the Philippines. Our national budget allocation of research is less than 1%, one of the lowest in the ASEAN. The current rank of the Philippines in ASEAN for scientific publications in Scopus and the Web of Science is third from the bottom or seventh from the top. 70% of our national budget for research is given to UP, while the 30% is competed by the rest of the universities. The Philippine records for innovation and patents remain among the lowest in the world, despite IPSO centers in every region. Our inventors have remained in utter government neglect, that we never hear of a patented Filipino invention that is being commercialized and marketed locally and exported abroad. So Filipino inventors sell their inventions abroad. There are more inventors who are ordinary people who are not from the academe. And the main drivers for patents and Scopus publication is promotion in rank of faculty, requirements for accreditation, and PBB or bonus incentives. So therefore, when faculty members produce research and publish them, it is with the intention of increasing their rank and promotion, and not necessarily to help society and to change the development status of our country. Despite hundreds of academic programs accredited levels 3 and 4 in the Philippines, only less than 30 scientific journals are indexed by Scopus, and half of these are from UP. Of the hundreds of articles in the Philippines produced each year, less than 10% are published in Scopus indexed journals, and of the total articles published online, only 30% are actually read. And out of such number, less than 20% are cited. So it is really a very important matter that our faculty members get cited out of their publications. Only 4 universities, UP, Ateneo, LaSalle UST, have entered in the top 1,000 Asian universities by QS World Ranking. Now, with these conditions, how do we improve? How can we sustain the development of research that can produce quantum leaps of progress? Let me venture at this point to posit that we need at this moment in time, at no other better period in our history as a nation, a national legislation making research a priority with a budget allocation of 10%. That is not even big. That is only half of what Singapore allocates for research. Then we can convert the current mandated 5% allocation to gender and development to research and development, because gender and development failed to deliver outcomes. Instead, the budget of God has become the pork barrel of public administrators. So if the government can allocate automatically 5% to gender and development, why can't it allocate only less than 1% for research and development? That says something about our scientific orientation and our scientific national culture. Not only researchers with at least 100 citations from their Scopus and Web of Science publication can become presidents and VPs of academic institutions. Let us give the management of HAIs to the scientists who are officers and regular members of the National Research Council of the Philippines and the National Academy of Science and Technology. That implies that we get off from politicians running the education sector of this country. All graduate programs should be available only to full-time students enrolled in HEIs with research, publication, and patent track records. Only then can we produce masters and PhDs with research competence. The situation is really sad. Monday to Friday, our students are actually working full-time jobs. Evening of Friday, they work on their assignments and reports to be submitted and recited on Saturdays, sometimes on Sundays. So that means that they are full-time workers and part-time students. That is the reason why they cannot absorb nor find the interconnectivity of the different disciplines. They are not able to quadruple the development of their metacognitive powers simply because they don't really have time to assimilate and see the application of the theories and concepts that they learn in their classes. We need also to realign the rank and promotion criteria to prioritize research and scholarly works so teachers can focus instead of spreading their attention to many areas to obtain points for ranking. If you would be able to have a time to look at the ranking criteria spread before your eyes, then you will be amazed at the so many things that the teachers need to produce and document in order to get tiny points that will add up to their promotion. That is why they cannot concentrate on their teaching. There is even a joke that says around in schools that teachers are so busy doing everything except teaching well, and much less researching well and publishing well as also. So I was surprised because one of our keynote speakers was a Fulbright scholar from Australia, and she was surprised at how we value so much all the plaques that are grandiose, the certificates being collected everywhere by everybody. And she says, in Australia, these things don't matter. What matters is publication. And our universities give us a white list per program that these are the only journals you're allowed to publish. And then if you publish outside of that list, you will not get any merit. So it is really the quality of the research and the books that we produce and the quality of the indexing companies and the global reputation of their publishing houses that spell out the difference in terms of getting their promotion. Another is that extension and production be removed as core functions of faculty. So our teachers can concentrate to excel in teaching and research. Production and extension can be retained as non-academic functions of offices on full-time basis. You know, I was in England some years back, and every time I visit a university as a Rotary Group Study Exchange Scholar, I always ask questions like, what is the status of your community extension service? And they said they don't have those. All universities have office which is called uh, Corporate Social Responsibility Office, manned by a fleet of full-time professional extensionists. And their teachers stay in the campus. They do not go out in order to produce this extension work every weekend. You can just imagine the horror of a teacher. Monday to Friday, she's in school. Saturday morning, she is in the community. And then in the afternoon, she has to wash her laundry. Sunday, she has to go to church and do some marketing. And then she will have to be back to her lesson preparations. So she gets very tired already when she reports to her classes. Now, let me speak about grants for research that must require foreign research collaborators and publications in the Web of Science and Scopus. What do I mean by here? In the Philippines, our culture is if you want to get grants from DOST, DOH, CHED, and similar other bodies, you need to produce proof that you are collaborating with other institutions, academic or non-academic, in order to pull together whatever scarce scientific resources there may be. But then such a kind of aggregation merely promotes, inbreeding, because the people you are collaborating are still coming from your community. Now, where is the external component of the perspective of research? So, if the government will give funding of 1 million or more, then it is but right that there should be foreign researchers coming into the picture and becoming part of the research team. Or at least they should be assisted by foreign consultants for research in order that we can produce, substantial content, wider scope of the content, and more sophisticated methodology. In this case, the research outputs will be eligible for publication in Q, Q1 or Q2 Scopus publications. One way to increase dramatically or exponentially or astronomically the number of Scopus publications in this country is through advisor-student co-authorship in Scopus and Web of Science indexed journals as a requirement in the doctoral programs. But if schools have very good academic training, this can even go down to the master's level. This will drive productivity. More than 10 years ago, I remember that in the Mindanao State University IIT Iligan campus, if you are working on a PhD in biology, a program that is a center for excellence, okay, by CHED, you need to present your dissertation first in an international conference outside of the country. Plus, you need to publish that in ISI or Scopus Index journals. Otherwise, you cannot begin applying for the oral defense. And in such a case, there is a co-authorship between the student and the teacher. So if we can successfully do that, and if we can generate a kind of thesis and dissertation that is prepared using the IMRAD format in which there are already publishable articles of 2 to 5 articles, okay, within the dissertation, then we will be able to produce as much and improve our ranking in Southeast Asia. We really need a national policy requiring Web of Science and Scopus publications in all ranking levels, whether you are in DepEd, TESDA, CHED, recognized public and private colleges and universities. There has got to be a national policy for this. About 5 years ago, my friends who are working with me in the publication of my journals, who are from uh, Indonesia, told me that there was a government policy that public and private school teachers when they are ranked, they cannot proceed with the ranking unless they can present ISI or Scopus publications. So that sort of created a tsunami of reactions from all sectors. And I was also told that the promotion of a teacher of a faculty to become professor, the document will be signed by the President of the Republic of Indonesia. So therefore, if a teacher is a doctor of philosophy, he cannot be called a professor unless he has documents to show that he indeed is a professor doctor. So if we follow the same trend, that we require this kind of publications in all our educational systems, then there will be no excuse that we cannot deliver as much. In the Philippines, we have about 2,600 more or less higher education institutions producing thousands of theses and dissertations each year. But these studies are not curated in a digital repository that is searchable online in the World Wide Web. And because they are not online, many of these are also not published as articles in scientific journal publications. So our researches, the larger majority of these, are not included in the bibliometrics of the world ranking bodies. So it is difficult to compete. Now, I think you will agree with me that there is a proliferation of graduate programs in the country. Almost all schools, colleges have graduate programs because before there was no stringent requirements to offer a program. Now there is a stringent requirement that unless you reach, I think, level 2 or level 3 accredited program in the undergrad, you cannot offer a master's program of that field. So, but then again, as experience would show, you can validate this with me, that everywhere there are many graduate programs that are not accredited. And these graduate programs are teeming with their enrollment. I was invited once to speak in a class of a non-accredited program for graduate course. It was a master's program. And the students even spilled on the hallway. You can just imagine that. But in the school that I came from, in which all our academic programs in the graduate school are accredited, we barely can manage 10 or 15 enrollees in a particular class. Why is this so? Because if your programs are not accredited, then you can offer your programs at a much lower tuition rate. And then you can hire teachers at a much lower qualifications and lower salaries. And you are not required to present high standard laboratories and libraries. So actually, they are proliferating. So if we can have a policy that only accredited graduate programs are allowed to operate, then at least that would help filter the stream that is continuously flowing of graduates in masters and doctorates who lack the intellectual sophistication for them to be competent enough to be called masters and doctors. Another point I'd like to raise in here is that the government should pay for the visiting foreign faculty researchers who will collaborate with Philippine researchers to co-produce studies with multinational co-authorship. This paves the way for scientific cross-pollination. I have traveled in almost all countries in Southeast Asia except Laos. That's the only one I've never been to. And I have visited their universities. It is very difficult to find a university outside of the Philippines in Southeast Asia that do not have a sizable percentage of faculty in the basic education, in the higher education, who are not foreign. In fact, in Thailand and Malaysia, one of the indicators of success of a school or of the prestige of a school is the number and percentage of foreign teachers who are handling their programs. So I remember in one of our academic meetings in the council, our president gave us the information that CHED has had required that 1% of the faculty should be foreigners. But in all of our travels across the country, except for UP Ateneo LaSalle, I have not seen a school in which there are foreign teachers who are in the roster of the academic faculty. So that is the reason why our teachers lack the essential of cross-pollination and also learning cultures which will be anti-inbreeding. Now, in the next slide, let me show you that we need to transform inbreeding of accreditation by federating with ASEAN accrediting agencies. So we integrate into our standards the best practices of Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand. A foreign accreditor should form part of the accreditation team. Because what really happens in the accreditation system of our country is that you scratch my back, I scratch yours. Why? Because all the accreditors come from the same agency. And, you know, there can be a certain degree of compromise in terms of the implementation of standards. So, can you really say that you are level 4 accredited and no one outside of the country has even seen you? Right? So, it is very, very important that we federate these accrediting agencies so that in one instance where the accreditors would come, there would be accreditors coming from 3 or 4 countries to look at our inside culture and to give us suggestions. And in those suggestions are built in also their cultures of excellence. Don't you like that? Now, each Philippine university or college shall be mandated to forge partnerships with each ASEAN country to create a joint research, publication, and utilization agenda. This generates higher readership and citation. What I mean here is that if I if I represent a Philippine college or university, I will go and visit 10 other ASEAN countries. And in each of these countries, I will forge partnerships and alliances so that together we can create a common research agenda, and then we can contribute articles for each other's publications. We can exchange and pull together our peer reviewers, our editorial boards, so that our peer reviewers will be a combination of foreign and local. Our editorial boards will be composed of scientific editors who are coming from various countries and various cultures. So if we are able to do that, then we will be able to generate a high readership. For example, if one study is written by 5 researchers, one Filipino and 4 other researchers from 4 ASEAN countries, then that is an article written by representatives of 5 countries. So certainly, when that is put online, it will attract the attention of the readers and researchers of these 5 countries. Because you see, if your study is only about your community or your university, why should you be read outside of your own community? Now, let me also emphasize that universities need an ASEAN library network in which all collections are shared to allow free exchange of scholarly outputs. You see, it has been more than 10 years I've heard about ASEAN integration. It never really happens. There is such a thing as ASEAN Universities Network, but it is a network only a very select universities, less than 5 or 10, in the Philippines are members of that. So there is no such thing as ASEANization as far as its permeation into the psyche and the worldview of every Filipino. Why? Because if you go to any graduate school or undergraduate school department, and then you look at their library, there is no ASEAN collection. There are no specific collections from Singapore, from Myanmar, from Laos, from Thailand, from Brunei. No, we don't have these collections. The majority of our collections come only from the US and Europe. Okay. So if this is the case, how can we read about the importance of other discoveries in the ASEAN region? So when I teach my students in the graduate school, I require them that if they produce a list of references, half of those references should come from the ASEAN countries, and the other half should come from the mother country, the Philippines, and other continents, so that we can have what we call as the ASEAN context of our problems. And so we try to utilize what best practices, what workable solutions did our ASEAN counterpart universities already implement to solve our current problems in the Philippines. I would like also to express at this point a need for a federation for ASEAN journals online so that we can hasten the citations of ASEAN authors. I happen to be a consultant of C&E Publishing, which is the owner of the Philippine Electronic Journals, which has a collection of about 200 titles of journals, more than 16,000 articles, and about 22,000 authors. This size of the Philippine Electronic Journals, of its content, is just about the size of the ASEAN Citation Index. I checked their website, and we have better opportunities to compete. Why do we need to federate? Because in all of the ASEAN countries, it is only in the Philippines that there is an agency that aggregates all of the journals or most of the journals, okay, into one and distribute that to the different subscriber libraries, whether academic or non-school libraries like, court libraries in the judiciary. The only one that does that in the ASEAN is the Philippine Electronic Journals. So if we can have that in every country and then federate so that just by using a password and a username, you will be able to access the different journals of the ASEAN countries and use this as the backbone of our introduction and our review of the related literature. Now, I would like also to express at this point the need for partner institutions in the ASEAN to schedule joint classes in which a particular subject is taught by an ASEAN team of teachers who handle multinational students for academic cross-pollination. For example, if you are a subject like forensic science, so it can be offered jointly by 3 or 4 universities coming from various countries in ASEAN, taught by a team of faculty in the ASEAN, and then the enrollees of this particular subject will be contributed by the joint by the schools that join the team. So you can just imagine students who are cross-pollinating, teachers who are cross-pollinating, and with the opportunity of Zoom in the new normal, it is very easy to do this, right? Okay, next. Research panel shall be composed of foreign and locals. It has already been 5 years that I have advocated for this, that Philippine and local panels should be included. Websites in the country shall be required to upload school information such as faculty, course syllabi, programs, and achievements of all offices. We also need a joint offering of degrees via consortium like MS and PhD in data science or predictive analytics. Okay. Our budget priority for schools for online, max ready with strong connectivity, and new hardware and software. We need that very well. Now, in conclusion, our national policies guarantee that we remain forever backward, outdated, and always at the bottom of every ranking imaginable in the world. That is why when people say, when people talk about ranking, 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 oh, here we go again. The Philippines is always at the bottom. So why is this so? What is the DNA of our being always kulelat? It is national leadership and not the lack of resources, which is the cause of our tragedy in research and development. The DNA of all our problems in research stem from the fact that less than 1% of government budget goes to the development of research. That means if we elect wrong leaders, if we appoint wrong school administrators for the right jobs, we cannot regain our exalted position in the ASEAN. When I was taking a PhD at the Royal Pontifical Catholic University of Santo Tomas in 1986 to 1988, when I studied there, I had many classmates who came from Taiwan, Korea, Thailand, Malaysia, name any ASEAN and even non-ASEAN countries, and they were there to study in Philippine universities. Why? Because we used to be very strong. We need to regain that. The right time is now, and the best people to act is we together should make it happen. Thank you, Polytechnic University of the Philippines. Okay.